We are back here at oddschecker.com/US talking more PGA Tour golf, and we go from one elevated super field right into another. It's the Genesis. It's at the Riv. Tiger is here. Tiger is playing. The purse is elevated. Tiger's appearance makes everything feel even more elevated. I'm here to talk about the outright board with my friend Andy Lack. Andy, Waste Management, Super Bowl, it is all in the books. It does feel like golf has a bit of runway now to sort of take over, and Tiger's playing. Any quick thoughts, I guess, before we get into guys you think you can win this week on your expectations for Tiger?
Yeah, I mean, I was fascinated to see that he was in the field. It was definitely a surprise for me. I did believe that we would see him at the Masters, but I did not think that we would see him anytime before. I mean, I think a lot of us, Geoff, I know this is something you've talked about before on some of your other shows, but a lot of us wanted to say to Tiger, like, hey, dude, maybe it's smart if you get some reps at the Heritage, the Wyndham, whatever you may have be, right? Some of these flatter, easier golf courses that maybe can give you just a couple competition warm-ups, right? Before you hit your first tee ball at a course like Oak Hill that measures, 7,500 yards and is one of the hardest tests that players will see all year on tour. Riviera is hard as hell, Geoff. Do not get me wrong. And we can talk a little bit about the course. But I'm really excited to see Tiger in the field this week. I mean, it's not an insane walk. This tournament's about 5 minutes from my house, so I go to it every single year. I have no expectations for him to actually contend or win the tournament, but I do think that it's the type of golf course that he can play well at. I'll go as far as saying that, my friend.
Tiger's golfing on TV. It just raises the bar of everything. I honestly feel like the broadcast improves, Andy. Like everything gets better when Tiger is involved. He's the host. Like you, I have no expectation. If he plays well, that'd be great. If he plays poorly, wouldn't I?
Whatever,
I'm
yeah.
sort of curious. Maybe do we get a commitment maybe to another event before the Masters, or now am I getting whoa, chill out, Fienberg? Like, because I'm sure Tiger's all about, I'll see how I feel. He'll see how his body responds to this week. I'd love for him to maybe even get another warm-up event in before the Masters. That'd be a great sign. But Tiger's playing. You can tell the players were excited about it. And let's get into it. Just give me like a quick 30 seconds, Andy, on the course. 5 minutes away from you. You watch it. You've played it. Lay it on me.
Yeah, so Riviera is, in my opinion, one of the seminal architectural masterpieces in America. I mean, this course was it was designed by the great George Thomas out of the Philadelphia School of Golf Course Architecture. I can give you another hour and a half on the Philadelphia School of Golf Course Architecture. I mean, there are books written about this golf course. There are literally books that are written just about Riviera. But to dumb things down, to make everything really simple, and to talk about this course from a handicapping perspective, you need a very well-balanced attack at this game, right, Geoff? These feature the hardest fairways to hit on tour, some of the lowest greens in regulation percentage on tour. We're back to POA, which means that, sorry, guys, get ready to tilt some 5 to 7 footers because players are going to make less 5 to 7 footers at this course than they do pretty much anywhere else that you'll see on tour. So the big thing that I'm looking for this week in players, and I'm sure it will be reflected on how we talk about the odds board, right, is you need a complete game, right? And we saw it at Waste Management, right? Like, obviously you've got your Nick Taylor in there out of the blue, and somebody like that will emerge at Riviera. But for me this week, Geoff, I think there's only a handful of players at the top, and it's going to be, in terms of the way I'm attacking the betting board, probably going to be big dogs only for me once again, my friend.
Yeah, so I mean that's a whole other conversation, Andy, because sometimes it's not like just to sort of tier them as restaurants. Like I can afford to go to the Michelin star, But sometimes it's like, nah, I could get so many more meals at this decent restaurant here. Why not? Or, God forbid we choose to go to the American eateries like a Cheesecake Factory. You can buy everybody. But no, yeah, no, those are the decisions that got to be made. And I love your passion for Riviera, and I love Riviera as a golf course that requires every part of your golf bag. We've seen guys play well here consistently. There's a lot of talk of master comps that are hard to ignore.
Yeah,
Just based
very
on
fair.
past winners and performances. And, up here in Canada, like Mike Weir's played great there. It goes too deep to ignore like that there's something serious. Whether it is actual there in the architecture or maybe it's just the greens, there is something there. But let's get into it. Big dogs at the top here, Andy, for the Genesis. Another elevated event. These guys, back-to-back enormous purses. Will last week's form carry over? Jon Rahm seems at the moment standalone at the top. Rory, Scotty Scheffler, both coming in at 10-1 across the OddsChecker grid. Justin Thomas at 16, Finau at 18, Xander at 18, and that is the cutoff on the OC grid in front of 20, Andy. 6 golfers, and I almost want to break them up into 2 tiers. In tier 1, my favorite pick of the group was the guy who didn't contend last week, would be Rory McIlroy. Riv just seems like a place he can absolutely take advantage on. There are card constructions going through my head. How do I build the card with Rory? I'm in a bit of a rut. Maybe I just do it and say, Rory, get me out of a hole. From that second tier, the JT Finau Schauffele tier, I think Justin would be my pick. Now, I haven't made a bet on any. I've also thought maybe I literally just bet Rory and Justin and do nothing. I thought about it, but there's also a card construction in the 30s that if people know me, does Fienberg have the willpower not to build his normal card? We shall see. But give me your thoughts under this 20-1 mark.
Okay, so I first off want to start by saying that I am lockstep with you on Rory. I don't think that 10-1 on Rory McIlroy in this field is a bad number. Like, I thought the numbers on Rory and Rahm were a lot tougher to swallow last week than they are this week.
But
of course, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I mean, but haven't we seen a bit of I don't want to say wild card, but the middle back of the board has shown some life here before?
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. That's why it's so tough to invest in Rory, because you're basically saying to yourself, okay, do I want 1 Rory or 2 Sungjae Ims and Patrick Cantlays who are playing phenomenal golf themselves? You know what I mean?
100%. But to your point of, I'm almost willing, when you say you don't hate the number, maybe it's fair. I am tempted to agree with you in the sense that once your mind is wired in the way that only 30 guys, 25 guys can win this week, maybe 20, then the 10-1 is a lot easier to maybe get over. Like when you think of it in the context of it's a 30-man tournament, it's a 20-man tournament, instead of it's a 130-man tournament, the 10-1 doesn't feel as daunting. Now, there are a lot of trapdoors with everything I just said. Nick Taylor tried to pull one. But as we've watched in golf in the last year, Andy, I mean, it's almost fair to say they don't exist. So in that context, do you look at that 10-1 differently, right? Because I assume you think only 22 guys are probably in play.
Yeah, I do. And I mean, I again, I think the difference between 10-1, if you're asking me the difference between Rory at 10-1 and Scheffler at 11 or 12-1, I'm not quibbling either way. My issue is that I love some of these guys in the late teens and early 20s. Like I mentioned to you off air, and I think you're a fan of him as well. I feel really confident in Justin Thomas this week. I mean, this is a guy that I have been riding for quite a long time. I think of the elite players, he is most due. And I know it's weird to say something like a guy is most due to a player that's won like 15 times on the PGA Tour. But this is a guy that racked up 15 wins between the ages of 20 and 27. And in the last, 2 years has won 2 tournaments, right? I mean, Justin Thomas is close, Geoff. He is close. I can tell you that right now. The one thing that has been slacking with JT recently is his iron play hasn't been up to his normal JT elite standards. That is changing, my friends. Justin Thomas gained over 4 strokes on approach last week in Phoenix. Justin Thomas, out of all the players in the field, who had the best iron play out of every single player in the field on Sunday? That's another thing I always like to look at is how are these guys trending throughout the week? Are they getting better throughout the week? Are they getting worse throughout the week? On Sunday, Geoff, Justin Thomas was the best iron player in the field at the Phoenix Open. I believe that he has all of the tools to succeed here. He's actually putted really well at Riviera, sneakily, and he does have a proven track record of success on POA. I know his short game, he gets all of the love because of his iron play, and he should. I mean, he's at times the best iron player in the world. I have JT as a top 5 short game player in this entire field. I mean, his short game is incredibly, incredibly underrated. So for me, I just feel it's all coming together at the right time. This was a guy that I said after I did my research on Sunday that I was in on at any number. I think this is JT's week, and I'll take the 16-1 and eat it.
All right, there it is. Justin Thomas, 16-1. You didn't tell me off air who it was. You did tell me, though, if I wanted to get off the mat, you had the guy for me. That would be Justin Thomas. And hey, here we go, Andy. So you've got Justin Thomas, 16-1, but it's a big boy event, big game hunters only. So that's not a bad place to start. And you could follow that up with a couple of those bodies in the 30s that we mentioned earlier. But before we get there, Homa's at 20, Morikawa's at 22, Sungjae Im at 25. He played great last week. Another guy that I could be interested in. A lot to talk about there, but I see myself passing on all of them, and I'm fixated on some of these guys in the 30s. Victor Hovland was as high as 33-1 now. It seems like it's come down to 28. He's got 2 straight top 5s here. Chipping is a little difficult for everybody. If you get the green complexes, it can be a bit of an advantage. Victor, when I like to bet on Victor, I'm betting on that ceiling. So that's something always in my mind, which means we don't sometimes have to worry about that stuff. Patrick Cantlay, Sam Burns, 2 other players I can't ignore. Burns seems great. His ball striking last week, phenomenal. I wasn't on him at the 60-1s, but I paid close attention. And by the stat line, he looks like he's ready to take on a place like this. But I've got to ask you about Patrick Cantlay.
Yeah, I bet him, Geoff. He's my guy, too.
So you've already answered my question. But last night was a Super Bowl. We all got into it. Everything's a little foggy. I wasn't on Cantlay at Phoenix, so he was out of sight, out of mind, and with the mixed cut. So my questions with this morning were, what's the deal with Cantlay? Is he playing well? I mean, is he playing poorly? Why is he 30-1? Did he lose a limb? And it was responded to me, no, Fienberg. What you see is Patrick Cantlay is as boring as a filing cabinet. No one gives a shit about him. When he's playing poorly, no one cares. No one likes him. Like almost in the same way as my partner in crime, Pat Mayo, said, in the same way, when Patrick Reed's playing well, his number goes up. But when he's playing poorly, or even for a moment, it just bottoms out because people don't care about him. They almost don't even like them. We're more indifferent with Cantlay, but it just clearly seems that, other cooler, younger guys have just jumped him. And it's not that he's played poorly. And I'll ignore a Phoenix miscut, as it seems like you have.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 12-footer to make the cut on Sunday, and he leapt out. And he still hit the ball fine. I'm not tripping at all over a miscut. I got him as high as 33-1, Geoff, enhanced on Bet365, which to me, I just find that a bit irresponsible. I mean, this is a guy that he's on the record about saying that this is a top 5 favorite course for him in America. I mean, this is a guy that went to UCLA, literally right down the street from Riviera. And you want to talk about a well balanced skill set, Geoff. I talked about how the one thing that I'm looking for this week was players that do everything well. I don't want a guy that is super elite at one thing, but sucks at another thing, right? I want a guy that doesn't necessarily have to be elite at everything, but is good at everything and plays weakness free golf. Geoff, there are 3 players in the world over the past year that rank top 25 in all 3 major strokes gained, all 4 major strokes gained categories, essentially meaning that they're top 25 in the world in around the green, approach, off the tee, and putting. It's Cantlay, Xander, and Rory, right? Those are statistically the 3 most
It's
well-rounded.
got to be close, right? He would have been maybe a wild card guess for me on that.
Sungjae is close. Matt Fitzpatrick is close too. Rahm is close, although he's had some
These are
short
like,
game issues
for when
over
I
the
was in
last
college,
year.
I played rotisserie fantasy basketball. These guys, they're like
Right.
the Andre Kirilenkos.
Right. You're right.
Right?
Balanced stat line. Yeah.
Yeah.
12 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 steals, 3 blocks.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for this week at Riviera. And Patrick Cantlay checks all of those boxes. But I got to ask you, man, because, I'm looking at some of these names in the 40s and 50s. Like, where do we stop? Right? Because I think both of us are in the mindset of we're taking big dogs at the top. But, could you see Will Zalatoris winning this course
Yes.
at 40-1 or
So
Adam
where do we stop, or where do we think the winners end? I think those are 2 different questions, because I wouldn't be shocked if Spieth won, if Fitzpatrick won. Those aren't winner guys that would shock me if they won, even the way Jason Day is playing. Where my betting card stops is probably a different question. But you let us right into it. Will Zalatoris at 40.
Yeah.
There's only one question that needs to be asked here. Is he healthy?
Yep.
Is he healthy? He didn't play in a $20 million purse event last week. That's almost all you need to know. 24 of 25 players in the world.
It's confusing as hell, right? And we're talking about a player
But
that got injured at the most, probably the worst time financially for a player to get injured. And now 3 months later, he has the opportunity to compete for $20 million, and he passes on that as well.
Yeah, and I said $20 million total purse. I think the winners are getting about
3.6.
Yeah, to the winners in these events. But it's just such the amount of money the guy finishing 40th is making in these events. It's no one's missing them if they're healthy. So, and I get maybe Will had a decision like my body only has one of these, and it sucks they're back to back. I'm going to pick Tiger. I'm going to pick Riv. I'm a Northern California guy. I'm picking that. But you could just bet Will Zalatoris at 40 like blindly, and I wouldn't even argue with you.
Yeah. And that goes the same with, like, listen, Matt Fitzpatrick, who won the U.S. Open at 40-1, 45-1, I'm seeing his high. Like, I'm not arguing with that one. Adam Scott has been the absolute king of Riviera. I know we are both Adam Scott fans. Like, I'm not faulting anyone who's betting him at 50-1, but, the only 2 moves that I have totally, even a guy, and he was bad last week, but Shane Lowry's 100-1, Geoff.
Okay, that was literally one where 25 minutes ago, I got to ask, I know I made the joke with Cantlay, but I got to ask Andy, did Shane Lowry lose a leg? Because I know he's listen, he's here because of Tiger. It might not be a course fit. We're going to Honda next week and then into the Shane Lowry season.
Yeah.
Like he's going to be under 20-1 at the Honda next week. He's 120-1 on some so weird. There's a lot to take in there with that, Andy. I'll quit. I don't know who else you want to.
I got no one else, buddy. I got no one else. Yeah.
I mean, people might be upset that we're not going farther. We do a collab article with a long shot that people can check out on OddsChecker if they want them, but it is an elevated event. So I don't really have an opinion in terms of suggesting for outright betting conversation These guys, I'm excited. I'm thrilled seeing Fowler and Bradley playing better. Like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Ricky Fowler, like, it would be so good to see Ricky. The wind's not. I don't think he's got the
We're
juice.
close, Geoff. We're
Yeah,
close.
and
Yep.
maybe next week at the Honda, the Prince of Palm Beach can
Yep.
arrive. You're
Yep.
going to the Riv this week. I'm
Yep.
actually going to be in Palm Beach next week.
Oh, hell yeah.
Maybe check out. I mean, listen, the field strengths will be very different. So instead of talking about Genesis long shots, Andy, I just want to mention I'm actually excited for the Honda field.
Me too.
Like,
I'm
the way
excited
we
for
got
any yeah.
yeah, the power fields are exciting, and people are going to make fun of next week's Honda field. But I'm the random Europeans. Like, it's really a golf hardo event, and
Yeah.
I do enjoy it greatly. I guess it would be irresponsible to not like. Do you have anything over 50 to 1 you want to give anybody? Taylor Montgomery's now 95 to 1. It would be a huge ask for an elevated event. He made comments that he was so rattled on the greens last week in Phoenix. Poa might be a bit more of a comfort spot for a guy like that. I was high on Corey Connors a week ago. He'd be 110 this week. I mean, I could throw Adrian Moronk at you, who's 180. Who people, our European better friends are probably going to be in on that. I'm convinced.
Well, again, like I have no qualms with Fitzpatrick at 45, no qualms with Adam Scott at 55. If you want to bet Ricky at 65 or 70, like I've got no qualms with that either. Shane Lowry again is that I may just like have to feel obligated to do that. Like I just may have to put $10 on that just because the number is so off. I mean, he's 5 in my statistical model that I made, and he's 100 to 1. That's one of the biggest discrepancies I've ever seen. I guess the last guy I'll throw out too is like, man, I expected, we're not far away from Tommy Fleetwood is a guy that finished top 5 at 3 of the 4 majors last year. And I expected to see sub 50 at every single major. And now Tommy Fleetwood's 100 to 1 at the Genesis. That feels, again, a bit irresponsible to me as well. And then
He ended last week, Andy. There were 100 to 1s as last week was getting going.
Yeah,
but yeah, I agree. And both these guys you mentioning are going to be prime for Florida situations coming up.
And it's like, what have you done for me lately, right? Like, there's so many good players right now, and I will continue to push back on like this idea that the PGA Tour's middle tier is weaker. I don't necessarily see that at all. Feels like every week we have a new guy popping up that is worthy of consideration of, sneaking into the top, 30 or 40 guys in the world. So yeah, for me, the only thing that I would do is like take a look at some of the very disrespectful numbers, Geoff. But for me, it's probably JT, Cantlay, and then one more guy in the low to mid 30s.
Okay, yeah, no, there it is. You could probably even squeak in Sung Jae or
20 or yeah. We'll see how the math works out.
If you wanted, but that sounds like I see my card construction looking kind of familiar to that. I'm usually a sucker to have maybe an extra body in there than you, but there's nothing wrong with that one bit whatsoever. Also, nothing wrong with winning prizes. And off the Super Bowl, hopefully everyone had a great Super Bowl. Hopefully you even cashed on some Scotty Schefflers. I did not. Nothing beats an opportunity to win prizes with nothing on the line. OddsChecker's running a prop pool for the Genesis Invitational this week with tons of great prizes on the line. Plus, it's super simple and completely free to enter. I've compiled a list of some of my favorite props for the event. All you have to do is try to get these prompts right, and whoever gets the most correct can take home a pair of free new golf shoes. Or if you finish second or third, you come away with a $50 gift certificate to the PGA shop on us. There's no reason not to compete. Again, completely free. It's fun, and there are plenty of prizes on the line. Hit the link in the description below to get started, and good luck. Tiger's back. So it's like 20% of them are Tiger props. We're here for it. Let's get it. For Andy, I'm Geoff Fienberg. Hit that like button. Good luck at the Riv.